The most ferocious armies in the galaxy were commanded by the single roar of a colossal emperor. Yet, that invincible beast never understood how a delicate human woman's subtle hair toss and whispered witty words turned him into a pathetic captive on his very own throne. The grinding screech of massive steel doors opening, the heavy, rhythmic thuds of armored alien guards' boots, contrasting with this brutal noise are soft, rhythmic, and incredibly confident footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The Gargantua Empire conquered the universe with nothing but fire and blood. Emperor Morok, a towering 3-meter-tall behemoth with thick scaled skin and massive horns, had never tasted the weakness called mercy. When humanity refused to bow to his armada, his forces captured the Alliance's most prized diplomat, Lady Victoria. Morok fully expected this smooth-skinned, fragile creature to fall to his feet, weeping and begging for her life in her chains. However, as Victoria was brought before the throne, she carried her heavy chains, not as a burden, but gracefully, as if they were expensive jewelry gifted to her. The pale light filtering down from the ceiling caught the dark, silky strands of her hair, casting half of her face in dramatic shadow and giving her a mysterious, lethal aura. Morok leaned forward from his throne, baring his massive fangs with a low growl. "Your kind is weak, human. Your arrogance will only last until your bones are broken. Now, kneel." Victoria did not kneel. Instead of the trembling submission of a victim, a mischievous, dark smile, one that belonged to a predator playing with its prey, bloomed on the edge of her lips. She possessed the capacity for deceit and the facility to take on different personae to mask her true intentions. She looked directly into the Emperor's eyes, then slowly trailed her gaze down his massive, armored torso, before tilting her head slightly and locking her eyes back onto his. This hypnotic up-down-up gaze was a clear psychological message without a single word. "I have evaluated you. I know exactly what you are, and I am allowing this." Morok's massive chest heaved involuntarily. Both of his hearts suddenly skipped a beat. This weak creature wasn't looking at him with fear. She was studying him like a fascinating sculpture. This sheer audacity completely short-circuited the Emperor's predatory nervous system. "I said kneel," Morok roared, but the unshakable authority in his voice had cracked. Even the heavily armored guards in the room shifted uncomfortably, sensing the invisible electric tension crackling between the two. Victoria tilted her head slightly, deliberately exposing the smooth, delicate curve of her neck. This was an evolutionary illusion of vulnerability, a lethal move, designed to confuse a predator by silently signaling, "I trust you because I do not fear you." "Does an emperor," Victoria began, her voice echoing like a dark melody in the dim room, "always entertain his guests with such crude manners? Or has fear replaced courtesy in Gargantua culture?" The human female never stated her desires outright. She weaponized witty banter and subtle innuendo, completely overturning the power dynamics. With movements as fluid as her chains allowed, she glided toward the wide steps of the throne. Sitting on the second step, she crossed her legs with absolute, flawless femininity. Slowly, she used her manicured fingers to sweep her hair back, a primal, seductive behavioral cue that signaled an intense focus on her own appearance in his presence. She was entirely aware of her sexuality, as well as the passions and the needs of her own body, and was ready to use her seductive nature to achieve her ultimate goal. When Emperor Morok realized the very hands that had burned galaxies were now trembling, he tried to disguise his reaction as anger. This tiny, chained human had infiltrated his mind without firing a single weapon. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Morok slammed a button on his throne. A massive red hologram materialized in the center of the room. The small human fleet, surrounded and vastly outnumbered by thousands of gargantuan warships. "If you do not submit to me," Morok snarled, his voice vibrating through the walls, "I will erase your weak species from the star maps. Beg for mercy." The low, menacing hum of the hologram, the sound of alien guards readying their weapons. And then, Victoria's soft, mocking, crystal clear laughter. Victoria wasn't terrified. She didn't cry. She didn't look away. Instead, she stood up slowly, the heavy metal of her chains clinking like wind chimes. The blood-red light of the hologram illuminated her flawless features. Knowing she was in the heart of a predator's lair, she squared her shoulders and walked slowly, directly toward the towering emperor. "You brought thousands of warships to destroy us, Morok," Victoria whispered. Her seductive smile widened. "How incredibly flattering. You needed to mobilize the entire might of an empire for a few billion tiny humans. I wonder, do your generals secretly mock you for this fear you hold?" Morok's pupils dilated. With just a few words, Victoria had planted seeds of doubt and paranoia into the emperor's absolute trust in his own military. She hadn't attacked him physically. She had delivered a devastating blow directly to his masculine ego and his pride. "Leave us, all of you," Morok roared at his guards. He could no longer bear his army, witnessing his helplessness against this delicate human woman. As the heavy doors sealed shut, only the two of them remained, the universe's most ruthless conqueror, and his chained, yet entirely free, captive. Victoria walked behind the massive throne like a reigning queen. She slowly and rhythmically traced her slender fingers along the cold, black stone of the chair. Morok unconsciously held his breath, tracking the movement of her elegant hands. "You can have whatever you desire, Morok," Victoria whispered. Her voice seemed to surround him, coming from the very shadows of the room. She stepped closer behind the emperor. The natural, intoxicating warmth of human skin radiated against Morok's scaled hide. She leaned in so close that her lips were practically grazing the alien's ear, yet she never made physical contact. She understood perfectly that sexual tension is all about getting the target to long for an action, and it relies heavily on what the characters are not doing, rather than what they are doing. There is something deeply maddening and intensely gratifying about the near touch and the almost kiss. By deliberately withholding that final contact, Victoria postponed his ultimate satisfaction, keeping his primal, burning longing agonizingly alive. The millimeter of empty space between them was a far greater torment for Morok than any galactic war he had ever fought. "You could take me right now, by force," Victoria whispered, her warm breath making the scales on his neck tremble. "But if you do, you will know that my will never truly surrendered to you. You will live for thousands of years, Morok, and every single night, you will rot in your own mind, wondering what it would have felt like if this delicate human woman came into your arms willingly." Victoria slowly pulled away, letting the cold air replace her warmth. She walked back to the steps of the throne and looked up at the towering monster with her piercing, icy blue eyes. "Or, you will withdraw your fleet, tell your generals that my species has submitted to you, and learn the patience required to truly possess the unique beauty of my will. The choice is yours, Emperor." Humanity didn't defend the galaxy with missiles or armored divisions. Humanity brought the most primal, brutal, and powerful creatures in the universe to their knees by chaining them with their own desires, vulnerabilities, and psychological hunger. When the invincible Gargantua Armada suddenly began to retreat from the Humanity Alliance's borders, Earth's generals thought it was a trap. But the official message from Emperor Morok shocked the entire galaxy. "Humanity is under the protection of Gargantua. Your diplomat is the most treasured guest of our palace." 2 days later, when the Alliance's high-level diplomatic envoy entered the Gargantua throne room to sign the official treaties, they froze at the sight before them. In the center of the room, the terrifying Emperor Morok, who made the universe tremble, was not sitting on his throne. He was sitting on the marble step just beneath it. His gaze was lowered to the floor. His savage aura had been completely tamed, turning him into a docile sentinel. And upon that massive black throne sat Victoria. She was still wearing the elegant dress from the day she was captured. The chains on her wrists hadn't been removed, but she wore them not as symbols of slavery, but as metallic, expensive jewelry, resting gracefully on her lap. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and she wore that famous, dangerous, all-knowing smile on her lips. She gave a slight nod to the arriving diplomats. She didn't need to say a single word. The power dynamic in the room had been reversed so flawlessly that everyone instantly understood who was truly ruling the empire. From that day forward, no warrior race in the universe ever attempted to conquer Earth with brute force again. Because they had learned a bitter truth. If your enemy attacks with weapons, you can fight them. But if your enemy shrugs, smiles at you, and plants the shadow of your own desires into your mind, that war is lost before you even draw your sword.